I don't know, especially for as a musician who's constantly creating and working on new material, I feel like a lot of my job is also seeing what's out there and being like, okay, what can I do that's different from everything else? Like I feel almost like liberated now that when I find stuff like this weird ambient pop compilation, because I'm like surrounded by, I don't know, as far as like the past couple of years as a rock band, there's so much like indie rock and post-punk and all these different like niches of stuff, and the trends go towards, and I constantly find myself wanting to break out of the mold, so I kind of just go searching for my new Jesus, you know, so to speak, to be like, take me away from the trends, and how do I find my own voice that's like different, and just kind of looking for like a spark of inspiration, you know.
Welcome, everybody, to Casting for Two, the podcast, as always, hosted by me, Chris. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 407. 407. Yes, there was no doubt that was the episode. Once again, continuing the message of the podcast, if you are going to go out in the world, wear a mask, all right? And if you happen to encounter people by going out into the world, be courteous and kind to them, because we are all going through this situation together. Message of the podcast: wear a damn mask and be kind to others, all right? That is the message. Wonderful episode for you guys today. A wonderful singer, musician, composer, music person, music man, all that. Niko Rao is here, and he is in a band called Bottled Up, and they are based in Washington, D.C. And I just had a phenomenal time talking with Niko. He's a super cool guy. I should also say that their latest album, Crystal, is available right now, and I recommend you all pick it up because it's such a phenomenal album, and I couldn't recommend it enough because I had a blast listening to it, and that doesn't happen often. It's at least happened 10 times this year, and I'm not going to tell you which albums, but for sure this one is in that list. So I guess I kind of told you. But anyway, I'm done talking. We need to get into this conversation, all right? So everybody sit back, relax, and Niko, take it away.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
It's going well. How is it going with you?
Good. I was just working on a little music, mixing some stuff right now.
It's your stuff, or do you do any kind of like producing for other people, or?
I do my stuff specifically, but I do some music for other stuff, like commercials sometimes, just kind of like soundtracking stuff, scoring stuff. I'm also working on, I just got hired by a video game company as one of their composers, so I'm working on that as well on the side. I don't know, just trying to hustle with, shortened hours because of COVID.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. With a lot of that, side work, and I don't want to say side work, but other work that you do. Do you ever have, and I don't know if this is an appropriate question, but do you ever have those moments when you think of something and you're like, oh man, I want to use it for, this video game or this commercial, but I feel like I feel like I want to use it for my own personal song or something.
Yeah, absolutely, it happens
Yeah.
all the time, especially when because we're usually working with a lot of different types of instruments for that
Mm.
stuff, including like a lot of orchestral stuff, a lot of strings, and drum machines and stuff like that. And then, so when I make like a cool melody, especially on like a string uh, instrument or something like that, like violins or cellos or something, I'm just like, oh my god, this could sound really cool on guitar. You know?
Let's stop playing this for a sec. It's
Yeah.
not going to work. It's not working out.
Yeah. But yeah, that does happen pretty often. But I just think of it as, I mean, it's like just it's interesting just the way the business works with that. It's like these companies are paying you for concepts which
Right.
come from your head, are totally subjective, and it's like, I don't know, it's just trippy to think about. So sometimes I try to think about that, and I'm like, well, I technically am a human, so I have an infinite amount of concepts. So even if
Right.
it's not this one, maybe I'll make something cooler. And I'm usually that type of musician where I'll make something, but the next thing I make will always be way better in my eyes than the last thing I made. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Is it because, obviously you've learned from, the previous experience, so now you're like, oh, well, I can apply this to this, and then it just keeps kind of like a domino effect going like that?
It's actually less about that and more actually what I listen to, like what's in my
Mm.
rotation of what I'm listening to in my
Okay.
free time. And that is constantly changing.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I've listened to a lot of music and sometimes feel like I'm running out of stuff to listen to. Like currently my latest kick is this compilation from this label that like reissues music called Memory from Music, and they put out this album, this compilation of like obscure ambient music, like ambient pop musicians from Europe
Oh,
specifically,
okay.
all from between 1986 to 1991. And then, like,
Nice.
I was just, so since I started listening to that, I was like, I want all my music to sound like this. This is so weird and different, and everything I was doing before this is bullshit, and now I need to do this. So that's kind of, usually depends a lot on what I'm listening to and what I vibe with.
Gotcha.
Vibing with at the time.
It's so nice, and I talk to a lot of musicians, not to brag, but it's always nice when I talk to somebody that the music that you make, your mood, all that is inspired by your current music that you're listening to. I feel
Hmm.
like a lot of the people I talk, like in personal friends, stuff like that, they're just not music listeners, or they listen to a certain set of things that they have. Like
Right, right.
I only listen to classic rock because that's all I listen to. I'm like, I mean, that's cool, but
Hmm.
I am if I'm not talking with people, I'm listening
Hmm.
to music. If I could, I would be listening to music right now as I'm talking to you, just because that's what I like to do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Like, especially because, I don't know, especially for as a musician who's constantly creating
Mm.
and working on new material, I feel like a lot of my job is also seeing what's out there and being like, okay, what can I do that's different from everything else? Like, I feel almost like liberated now that when I find stuff like this weird ambient pop compilation, because I'm like surrounded by, I don't know, as far as like the past couple of years as a rock band, there's so much like indie rock and
Right.
post-punk and all these different like niches of stuff, and the trends go towards, and I constantly find myself wanting to break out of the mold. So I kind of just go searching
Mhm.
for my new Jesus, you know, so to speak. To be like, take me away from the trends, and how do I find my own voice that's like different, and just kind of looking for like a spark of inspiration, you know?
And I know this is going to be a really open-ended question, but I'm curious because I do sometimes run into walls where I want to listen to music. I just don't know where to go because I've already went to radio. I've already went to blah, 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 blah. Where do you go to look for music to, different music to listen to?
So usually I check on a lot of labels that I really like, that I really enjoy, and I guess that's kind of like an old school way to do it. I was using Spotify like everybody else for a long time, and I still do use Spotify to like listen to stuff, but as far as discovering stuff, I kind of found that I was getting really annoyed with the Spotify algorithms and what they were feeding me. I was almost like offended. I was like, why would you try to tell me to listen to this?
Right.
And so I was like, I got to take this into my own hands again. Otherwise, I'm just going to be under Spotify's thumb again, listening to the same, whatever, over and over. So I started going back I used to do music blogs, but those aren't really around as much anymore. So now I just go straight to the labels. So I kind of, if I find an artist I really like, then I'm like, okay, what label are they on? And then I look at the label and read summaries of bands and bios of bands and see what's interesting. I also DJ on the side, and I'm not that great of a DJ, but I know some really awesome DJs, and so I'll ask them for suggestions, and they're like even bigger nerds than me, a couple in particular, and so I'll be like, hey, what is like more stuff like this song, I could just send them a song and be like, hey, do you know anything else similar to this? And they're like, yeah, that's actually from this label, and here's the Brazilian version of that from 1967 to here's like the 90s remake of that when, it was big in the deep house scene. And so it's like, I depend on my friends a lot too, and I kind of gravitate towards those people.
Oh man, I'm jealous that you have those people just say, hey, need more of this. Where at?
I mean, they get annoyed sometimes. I just push them on it. They're like, have you ever heard of YouTube? And I'm like, yeah, but I want to know it from you. I don't trust YouTube. There's so much crap to sift through,
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I like YouTube is probably the number one way I look for music, just because, or to look for new artists, because I'll listen to something, whether it's on the radio or satellite radio. I'll take a photo of the title, and then I'm off to do research on the band and see who else they like or what they sound like, just stuff like that. But sometimes it's always just kind of, somebody just tell me who you listen to.
I mean, yeah, I feel like anyway, like even that, what you're just talking about, like listening to the radio or even satellite radio and finding something you like, and then like actually putting the effort into searching for it and similar stuff on your own is already like really punk rock compared to what everyone's used to doing, which is just, looking at their Discover Weekly or whatever.
Right.
So I definitely respect that. And definitely keep doing that.
Well, I don't know if this is another punk rock thing, but I don't use Spotify.
Oh, that's very punk rock.
I've never, I understand it's an outlet and a good outlet for individuals and musicians and all that, but I've just never been able to use it. And, I've just, again, like YouTube or, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, although that's kind of more of what I use to listen to music. But yeah, Spotify's pretty popular. Awesome. Great. If you're listening to this on Spotify, awesome. Great. I love you. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I'm just like, I don't try not to send me a Bandcamp link versus a Spotify link. That's all I'm saying.
Totally. I mean, the Bandcamp app is like really great. Yeah. I actually, one of the said DJ friends before was very mad at me that I was using Spotify and made me download the Bandcamp app.
There we go. Yeah, that'll happen.
Ever since.
But as far as you mentioned it and how you've been working different projects, various projects. We're all in this situation that we're in, and one of the things I've been asking people ever since the lockdown and everything that's been going on, have you noticed your creativity have an uptick or a jolt since you've been kind of self-quarantining and doing your own thing?
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, right when quarantine hit, I was kind of confused at first, but I mean, around that time, we had those like fatty stimulus checks and
Yeah. Yeah.
unemployment checks, and I was all of a sudden had more money than I knew what to do with, so I spent it on a lot of synthesizers and equipment and stuff, and kind of set up in my room. And I was like, I better spend this now before I spend it on like food or alcohol or something, like on something
Yeah.
productive. So I did that, but honestly, the bigger thing that made it possible was not having to play shows. I was playing like maybe 2 shows a week at some point, the year before in 2019. And so writing music was almost like impossible. We would write together and practice, but then we would have another show, so it would be like, we just got to finish the song as fast as possible. But I felt like once quarantine started, I was very grateful to finally have time to slow down and try to understand what even the message of the music is, or my music is, and what I want that to be, what it's been so far, kind of like figuring out patterns between lyrics and different songs I've written on like the album that just came out and the new stuff I'm writing. And it's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. I felt like to be brief, I guess, is I just felt like I didn't have time to myself, because it's such a grind just being a performing musician and touring and playing local shows and just all that stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that. And, it's always nice to just take a moment for yourself, of course, and evaluate. But I'm curious, since, kind of, you said, doing some evaluation and all that good stuff. Was there ever a song that you wrote, and it could be in the past, that, you listen to now that you're like, you know what? I don't know who that guy was. I don't know what this is about. Like, I can't relate to this past person who wrote this.
That's a good question. Yeah, I would say our first EP. It was for this band. It was right when I moved here to DC, and I started the band. It's hard for me to go back to that stuff because I had just moved from the West Coast, from Los Angeles, and I grew up in Oakland, California. So both of those places, everything was and still is pretty focused on like garage rock and surf rock and all that stuff. So I came over here, and that was just like what I knew how to play. But at this point now, I'm so far away from that stuff, and I'm almost like feel bad that I spent so much time working on that kind of music, because I feel like in the end, it was very derivative of everything I grew up around. And I mean, I'm still grateful for it because it taught me how to play my instruments very well, or at least not very well. I mean, just enough. But
yeah, well enough. Yeah,
well enough. But I felt like I was just kind of going with the flow, and I didn't have a serious message. And then I've actually been really grateful for DC because I've grown up I've been spending so much time around other types of musicians and jazz, electronic, hip hop, everything, all genres, and playing with these people. And so at this point now, I feel like genre-wise, I don't necessarily have. I'm trying to build something new, and as opposed to just going with what's comfortable. So yeah, I the guy that I don't know is the Niko who is doing what's comfortable.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And it's like I can certainly. I mean, I grew up listening to rock and alternative rock and stuff like that, and I still like it. I'm not gonna put it down or anything like that. But growing up, going to school, my focus, I remember walking into the band room one day, and I had been, 3 months into drum lessons, and my band teacher said, you play drums?" I go, "Yeah." And being I should have said no, like I'm just learning, whatever. He goes, "Well, we need a jazz drummer, so you're in." And for the next 3 years, it was just me playing jazz. And I remember having just a hatred towards it because I was like, this isn't rock. Why am I playing jazz? I don't know what I'm doing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then,
Hmm.
cut 2 years later, obviously now that I'm older, and I've had the opportunity to play with people that I've never played with.
Yeah.
And it's literally just the jazz training in my brain takes over, and I'm like, all right, I'm timekeeper, let's do this, and then I'll be able
Hmm.
to listen to everybody else and back up everybody else and just stuff like that. And I part of me wishes that I appreciated that when I was a young kid, dumb kid, just like you should appreciate jazz right now. But for some reason I just wasn't able to because it wasn't Foo Fighters.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I totally. It's awesome to be kind of forced out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and kind of going back to what you were saying about how quarantine, or like slowing down and kind of figuring out the message of stuff. One thing, I have like a whiteboard in my room that I
Mm.
often use to just like scribble down stuff that I think is important to remember and kind of look at it. But one of the things was like, what's the point of like playing music, of writing music, if you're not going to try to do something different and
Mm.
like try to set things up for like the next generation, or like push boundaries. At least for me, that's what I feel like I gravitate towards,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to push rock, pop, or mostly not even just rock or electronic music or whatever. It's just like the pop song structure,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to find ways to be subversive. I was like, that's my shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but that's
No, you're
like
you're fine.
where, yeah, that's where I feel like that's what I want to gravitate towards. Is like, I feel like I am satisfied with spending all this time and emotional energy and physical energy on writing and playing and practicing and arranging and producing,
Mm-hmm.
as long as it's something new that I think can affect the rest of the music sphere in a positive way.
Gotcha. Okay, and with your newest release, Crystal, what was one of the because again, when I was listening to it, I was like, this is really it has a very throwback feel to it, and I was like,
Hmm.
I'm totally digging this, but I'm just wondering what was one of the messages that you wanted to send out to the people, or even yourself.
Yeah, totally. So for that, it was a lot of it was in the lyrics,
Mm.
and also in my vocal style itself. I'm not necessarily a good singer. I can sing somewhat, but I feel like my voice is very distinctive. And I've always kind of buried it in reverb, you
Mm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
because that is the West Coast thing to do. And
Right. Right.
once I started working with the producers here, I was like, what if we made this like kind of throwback. A lot of the influences that came out on this record was like high school stuff I was listening to as a kid, like the Pixies,
Mm.
especially, was this kind of uh, like weirdo punk, I guess I would call it, to short phrase. It's like weirdo punk style rock music, but my voice isn't screaming. It's not necessarily singing, but it's very far forward in the mix. And that was very uncomfortable for me. So it's
Mm.
like working through that, and then because that's happening, means the lyrics have to matter. There's a common theme throughout the record too that is kind of embracing this attitude of being becoming comfortable with being vulnerable,
Mm.
both as me as the singer, and also trying. And that was also the point of a lot of the interlude stuff between the tracks, was I wanted to kind of go into this concept of like world building, this safe place to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
where I felt like I could say exactly what was on my mind and in my heart. And I feel like that was what was different about it, as opposed to just being a regular rock record or a regular punk record where it's just like song to song to song to song.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
No, no, it does. I'm curious though. What is it about being vulnerable that has you like
Mhm.
like awkward? Feel awkward or something like that. What is it about that?
Um, I feel like there's a lot of things just even in normal conversation with each other that there's a lot of masks we wear to blend in with day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like even in music where we do have a place to be able to be ourselves, I still feel like, at least me for myself, I wasn't really kind of saying what's up, like what's on my mind. But I kind of, it was almost like a rebellion against the day-to-day dullness of fake conversations and fake relationships with people. And I felt like I wanted to put out a record and put out a record that would, at least in my eyes, be fighting that, fighting our tendency to go towards that being the norm. And I'm hoping that this was just kind of the tip of the iceberg as far as, because I was trying to figure it out myself too. It was like, what am I fighting against with this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, I could just make like a Foo Fighters record, so to speak, of just like nice rock songs with catchy hooks or whatever. But that's not me. And so it's like, how do I make this me behind closed doors and show that? And that was my attempt with the record.
Okay. And I know you said getting the tip of the iceberg, but was there a sense of relief or nervousness when you do a pretty vulnerable CD track and you release it? Do you have, and you get good feedback? Is that kind of like, oh, I can breathe now, or like what is your thought
Absolutely.
process?
It's
Yeah.
a huge relief because it's such a risk. It's such a risk, at least for me, like, especially for someone as judgmental of music as me. I can be the biggest hater or the biggest lover of music, but I definitely feel like I'm very good at hating things I don't like. And so for me to be vulnerable, it's like, whew, I don't even know if I have if I'm allowed to do that with how mean of a person I can be, of a critic I can be, stuff I don't like. So it is, I'm like, yeah, it's a total relief because, especially like lyrically and musically, I was being pretty adventurous with a lot of the stuff. Like, a lot of these things are rock songs, but it's not common arrangements of rock songs. Like, there's a lot of stuff there's even songs in here where there's not a verse and a chorus. It's just like part A, part B, part C, because that's what I'm trying to say. And that is from start to finish the emotion itself. And it can't be said with a verse, chorus. And when you present something like that to a music critic, they're going to be looking at it and being like, where's the hook? Where's the chorus? Like, where's the beat? When's the beat going to drop and all that stuff? And that's the scary part. So when we did get positive feedback from it, especially from a lot of these bigger publications, I was definitely relieved, and I felt like I was on the right track. And there were definitely points in the process where I was very scared before the album came out, and even times where I just wanted to pull the plug because I was so like anxious.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're able to push yourself and just keep going and trust the process, because I mean it would have been so easy just to not do it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Kind of again, doing my own personal exploration during these times. It's so easy not to do something, and
Absolutely.
it's shocking how easy it is. But to do something that you love and continue to go through with it, that I think that in itself is a reward. So
yeah, it feels really, honestly, for me too, like one of my favorite things is just in normal life is when there's something, like I've planned out something that's supposed to happen, and all of a sudden it cancels last minute, and I have all this free time. I'm just like, I love that feeling for some reason. So it's like very easy for me to be able to say, you know, to back off on stuff, but back out of stuff. But honestly, if it was just me putting this out, I probably would have canceled it, you know, not put out the album. But because of the band, you know, all the time and energy and love they put into it, and my partner and our manager kind of pushing me. Like I had a team of people around me, like this emotional support system, where I was like, okay, this record isn't just about me and my bullshit. You know, like it's about everybody who's involved in this and who believes in it. And being able to have a team like that and have the band, you know, kind of make the decisions as well, makes it feel like a lot less of a burden, because it's like everybody's validating what's happening on the record, you know, that made it.
There you go. There you go. But, you know, before I leave you, I'm curious, you know, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I feel like you would have a very interesting response. I'm curious, what does music mean to you?
What does music mean to me? Music to me is, oh man, that's such a good question. I actually feel like I read something yesterday that I was watching an interview with Shia LaBeouf, actually. Yeah. And I forgot what it was on, but he said something really interesting. It was, he was being asked a question about if memes are considered an art form, like just the format of meme. Yeah. And he said, if anything can make you feel something, it's art. Yeah. If something is making you feel something, that's art. And I feel like that's the point of music, is to make us feel something when we have so many distractions around us to keep us on the track that, you know, the safe path. And it's so easy to become complacent in your day-to-day activities, and before you know it, you know, you're old person and you're gonna bite the dust. So it's like, I feel like art and music specifically, is there to make you feel something and make you feel alive. That's the point of it for me, at least.
You know what? That Shia LaBeouf might know something or two. And, you know, let me just say that, let me put this out. I love Shia LaBeouf, so, but the fact that somebody asked him about memes, that makes me laugh, just because I would just wonder what his facial expression was. But, yeah, no, Shia is probably the most punk rock actor, you know,
absolutely,
you could find. So, yeah, no.
For sure.
For people at home who want to keep up with everything that you, the band, are doing online, where can they do all that?
Yeah, the best places are two spots are our Bandcamp, so bottledup.bandcamp.com, or our Instagram, which is actually kind of a lot more updated frequently, and that is, let me see here. It's an Instagram, bottled_up.exe. And there we have links to all of our music. I'm also working on a video series that's kind of similar to Adult Swim Off the Air kind of stuff, and kind of like a surrealist video music project. And I'm posting episodes of that. The second episode's going to be up soon. That's what I was working on just before you called, actually.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I'd say probably Instagram is the best spot.
Nice. Okay, there you go. Niko, thank you so much for chatting with me. Anytime you want to come back and shoot the shit, just let me know. I enjoy what you're doing, and I want you to keep on going and making your art.
Thanks, man.
But I'll let you go, and have a wonderful day, and stay safe and stay healthy. All right.
Awesome. You too, man. Take it easy.
All right. Bye-bye.